from Europe and Canada. A lot of physicians come to this country to practice medicine. I'll let them explain to you why they do that, but it usually has to do with the systems from which they come. they will tell you that. Now, and again, so I'm not here to judge any other system fairly, harshly, or fairly, or in any way. Just to suggest though that their systems are different. They require much higher levels of taxation, particularly in Europe, and they do require, ultimately, I do believe they yield lower rates of growth, and ultimately you have higher unemployment rates. I mean, I don't think we can detach the healthcare debate from the broader economic questions that are on the minds of many people. It's about, people are worried about their jobs. I mean, they're worried about their careers. They want to make sure they have opportunities going forward. And what we do in Washington has an impact. I mean, not just on healthcare, we have energy policy now. We have cap and trade out there. It's a national energy tax. I mean, that's a big, big deal. It's a big deal, and it's going to have impacts on all sorts of people who make things and do things. You flip a light switch, you drive a truck or a car, or you use natural gas to heat your home or power your business. People are worried about this.
I think the thing that we have least discussed is, I think, the most important thing that needs to be discussed. Why don't we bring our troops home from all over the world? We're spread all over the world, and we can bring our troops home. And it would cost, the costs are majorly, the major costs of the United States have to do with war.
Well, actually, the big costs, as I said, are coming out of the big entitlement programs, mandatory spending. That's where the big money is. 62% of your federal budget goes to paying interest on the debt, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and a few other what we call entitlement programs. That's 62% of federal spending today. 38% goes for what we call discretionary spending. Half of that goes for what I would call security spending, defense and homeland. The other half for domestic discretionary spending. It's everything else the federal government does. Now, with respect to the question on bringing troops home, the number of troops in Iraq will be down to about 50,000.
I mean, all over the world.
Well, I understand. But look, we're a nation with responsibilities. We have these responsibilities. We assume those responsibilities largely after the Second World War, whether they be in Korea or in Europe and Germany. We have a much, obviously, lighter presence in Europe now than we did during the Cold War, so that presence has come down. The Korean Peninsula is pretty hot again, and we have a presence there. Our troop presence in Iraq is coming down. We'll be down to about, we were as high as about 160,000. We'll be down to 50,000 in August. Today, actually, there are more troops in Afghanistan than Iraq. Somewhere around a little over 100,000 in Afghanistan, I believe, slightly below that in Iraq, and that will come down quickly in Iraq. And so troops will be coming home in short order, and by 2011, consistent with the Status of Forces Agreement, by the end of 2011, we should have nearly everybody out of Iraq. So that presence is, but we do have real threats. I do serve on the Homeland Security Committee, and there are real threats. Part of the reason we're in Afghanistan today is because of the fact, some would argue, we abandoned it after the Soviets left. We helped the Mujahideen we helped Mujahideen get rid of the Soviets out of Afghanistan. Vacuum was created, lawlessness, Taliban rises, terrible things have happened. That became the breeding ground for Al-Qaeda and other radical Islamists, from which 9/11 attacks were planned and plotted. So we have responsibilities, and that's why we're there today. And so I hear you, but at the same time, we do have responsibilities, and I don't think that we can easily ignore. I think it's also important, too, that some of our allies do more than they've been doing.
They don't agree on what you're doing.
Well, let me back up a little bit here. Many of our friends in Europe spend about 1% of their gross domestic product on defense. We spend about somewhere between 3.5% and 4%. We shoulder a heavy burden as part of NATO. We shoulder a very heavy burden. I think it's been disproportionate. And this relationship must be better balanced than it has been up to this point. We've seen it in Afghanistan. And I was over there. I heard the complaints from I was just visiting with our medical personnel. And I remember very specifically what one of the colonels said to me.